For those, if you just joined us, you're watching the update on the Kenya election. Is already 19:25 p.m. in Kenya, and in Nigeria here, Lagos is 7:25. That's just 2 hours apart, and we've listened to Kevin letting us in on what has happened before the coalition, which is still ongoing, before onward movement to Nairobi. And of course, he's also told us a little bit of what the security agencies did to curtail what should have become a big violence in that election. I'll give you a little bit on Ruto and Odinga and some voting patterns pretty much later. But again, I still have with me live in Nairobi Dr. David Matsanga, and with me in the studios here is Vincent Otieno. We're looking at what exactly has happened. Dr. Matsanga, quickly here, Ruto is looking at Mount Kenya, which is in Kikuyu, for his votes. That's why he chose Gachuga.
Can I tell you one thing? I've sent it to your studio right now, live from Mount Kenya. Otieno knows Juja constituency. If you look at Juja constituency, you can believe that Sulaiman, inshallah, God was with us the other day. When I was telling you, Raila in one constituency got one polling station, 145. Ruto got 200. I have sent them to your studio to the producer, big Mr. Daddy. You can pin them down. They are here. They are coming from the IEBC, and you can see that Raila and Ruto in the mountain, as Otieno and I were telling you, they are actually 40, 45, 55, 45, 55. You see, look at the votes. Raila has climbed the mountain. Well, Raila has climbed the mountain. If these are the results, he has climbed the mountain. These are results that Raila never got. Never got. So with the voter turnout, Sulaiman, which you can witness in the entire Mount Kenya, which was 57%, let's say, of the entire voter turnout in Mount Kenya, people just decided enough is enough. Some of them did not come. They did not come. Polling stations were empty. I drove around here when I left Otieno in the afternoon. I drove every place to see whether they are queues in Kiambu. And I remember Kiambu is the home ground. Juja is the home ground of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. But if you see one constituency giving you 145, 168, 115, 200 and 120, Wajikoya getting 3 there. Ruto is, of course, Ruto got higher, but Raila got 3/4. Almost 3/4 of the vote. So you can see if Ruto does not score 70% of the vote needed in the mountain, and he scores even all the votes from his area, he cannot become the president of the Republic of Kenya.
So let me come to Vincent. Is it okay to say, looking at the results now as it's going, Odinga made a right choice by picking Martha Karua?
I agree. That was a really calculated move that has helped him a lot. And based on the results that we are seeing, there's effect, but we attribute it to 2 things.
Yeah.
We'll attribute it to the Martha Karua effect and also the incumbent effect that we are also experiencing.
Now we're talking about the support
the support he's enjoying from the president, exactly. So these 2 things, these are areas that Raila has never gotten votes. If in the history, because you know the history of Kikuyus and Luos have never been that good since our independence. The fallout that we had between Kenyatta Senior and Odinga the Senior also. So, but it's the first time that we are seeing Raila would get more than 100 votes in one polling station. So the Martha effect has been, we can see the Martha effect in this one. We can see the Uhuru effect in this one. And we can also see that there's another factor that maybe also happened is that considering the region doesn't have a presidential aspirant, they might decide that, well, they have nothing to lose. When it comes to their running mate, they have from both sides. So whoever wins, they still have the position. But there is nobody who is contesting for presidency from their region. So I think we are making an history in as much as it is based on a lower turnout. But Kenyan politics is taking a new trend where if the entire Mount Kenya region, Raila can get such number of votes, that means we are shifting. We may be shifting now from a ethnical politics to some extent.
Because it's always been ethnic, it's always been regional, and that is why you're looking at the deputy presidential candidates are being chosen from Mount Kenya, and that's the Karua effect we're seeing, according to your analysis.
Yes, exactly. So, but Mount Kenya, they have never been comfortable with Raila. In history, they have never been comfortable with him. He has been banded many types of names, but them accepting, and I saw that the polling station that His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta voted, Raila got over around 119 votes. So a lot is happening, but I think it's a good trajectory that we are taking as a country.
Let me bring in David. David, let's take it one after the other. Before we talk about the Karua effect on Mount Kenya, as we've seen working for Raila Odinga. Let's talk about the incumbency factor and the handshake. Perhaps time for us to start talking about the handshake. Before the handshake, it was more or less like no for Raila Odinga. The handshake seemed to be working, isn't it?
Yes. The handshake was one of the best legacies that Uhuru Kenyatta will leave on planet Earth. And it is high time that Africa got used to the handshake. There is nobody who knows politics in Africa. No.
So David, if, for better understanding, give Africa a perspective. When we talk about the handshake in Kenya, what do we mean? If we can do this in a minute.
It is when Uhuru Kenyatta won the 2017 elections, contested election, which was contentious. Riots broke out, people started killing each other, and so many things happened. And Sulaiman, as we talk, some bad breaking news that have just come in right now. The Kimilili MP, Didmas Baraza, has shot dead a person, killed him. It is just right now all over the televisions. And yes, it is election-related crime that has just happened. It's very bad. It is breaking news in Kenya right now. And the police have, I think, apprehended him, not apprehended him. The police is on the scene taking the bodies. So many people, about 4 people have died in the crisis. That's some bad news breaking right now from Nairobi, from Kenya. One of the violence that took place in Western Kenya. Coming back to the handshake, it is very sad that people in Africa don't see the value of opposition. Opposition in Africa must also learn to be constructive. So Uhuru Kenyatta saw that value of opposition, that, okay, I have got the leadership, I'm now the president, but I need every Kenyan to be with us so that I can build the country, a united Kenya. That's why they looked at areas which always separate Kenyans to different camps. One of the areas that separates Kenyan is ethnicity, which you have talked, ethics, corruption, security, national ethnic norms, people and morals, morality. Those are 90 points that Raila Odinga and Kenyatta looked at. Let's look at them. The Constitution itself has become an obstacle. For example, you can't fight corruption in Kenya. What do? They sat down together. We called it a redemption strategy. After you have won elections, you don't need to be an enemy to the opposition. That is what we call a handshake. And they took a step forward, avoided all the bad things that had been happening, the bad names they had been throwing at each other. Otieno will tell you, they shook their hands and this nation healed from that rift. That is the handshake. That is the one that Morgan Changarai did with Mugabe. And that's the one Chamisa is doing right now as we speak, which I took to Zimbabwe. I took that to Zimbabwe and I told President Mnangagwa, try this method, that medicine. Zimbabwe could be a very good opposition.
We'll talk more. We'll speak more about the handshake because the handshake seemed to be a healing balm in Kenya. As we've seen before now, leading up to elections in Kenya used to be very violent. But somehow, since after the handshake, there seemed to be some peaceful moment, especially for opposition candidates campaigning on either side without being attacked. Very quickly here, let me jump in and bring in Kennedy Murithi, who is a journalist. He joins me live. Kennedy, good to see you and thanks for your time. Quickly, we've seen what's happening in Kenya, and at the moment, collation of results are ongoing. And are the politicians and people excited about what's to come as the votes are being counted?
Well, a very good evening to you, coming to you live from Nairobi. Yes and no. There are no people who are coming out to speak about the results as they come in right now. Everybody is actually glued to the IEBC portal, where some of those Form 34As. Now, let me tell you something about Form 34A. Form 34A is that document, that important document that captures the results of what has happened in each and every polling station. Now, this Form 34A is the document that declares the final word at every polling station, and that is what has to be taken a photo of and sent to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Now, according to the portal that I have just reviewed about 5 minutes ago, we have received information that out of the 46,000 polling stations that are there in this country, they have already received about 18,000. What does this tell us? We are looking at the probability that by tomorrow afternoon, latest, Kenya might be knowing who the president will be. Now, the laws were changed a bit to allow that every polling station starts counting with the presidential vote. Now, this one goes ahead to probably bring down the tension that is there. But according to the law, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has 7 days to announce the winner of this election. But knowing that Kenya, the problem is not in the voting, neither is the problem in the ballot papers. The problem in Kenya is trust. If these elections go until tomorrow evening and a winner is not announced, then the trust issues that politicians have falls in and it percolates to the people that are on the ground. So when I tell you that yes and no to your answer, I do know that at this particular time, politicians are what we call, they are set up in their different places in polling, in tallying centers that they do not want to tell everybody, trying to tabulate and receive results as and when they do come. As it is right now, the IEBC portal and the Nation Media Group are the ones that are relaying information, as well as Citizen TV are relaying information that is coming from the main numerous correspondence that they have on the ground. The Nation Media Group is relying on people that it put in most of these polling stations. So what did the IEBC say? The IEBC gave the authority that immediately each and every polling station finishes counting the presidential vote, then the Form 34A is taken a picture of with all the signatures from all the agents of the presidential candidates that are there at that particular time. And in this particular election, there are not so many, there are only 4. Then they take that picture and send it immediately to the National Tallying Center, that is in here, Nairobi, at the Bomas of Kenya, where I will be tomorrow. So to answer your question, yes and no. Politicians are not showing openly what they are feeling. But as we do know, there are those that are saying that this election was free and fair, going by the fact that there have not been fracas the whole of today, and everybody is settled waiting for the results. What I have seen, and according to the portal, is that Raila Odinga was leading by around 1,000 votes by the time they were being uploaded.
Well, I think, Kennedy, you know, we're looking at the results. The results are really not stable. It's been going up and down like a yo-yo. But again, it's just 9:32 in Nairobi. At what point are we expecting to see a closure to the collation, that's the tallying, before everything moves to the tallying center? At what point are we likely to see the results all get into the tallying center?
I want to believe that by tomorrow afternoon, we will know who the president of Kenya, the fifth president of Kenya will be. And the contest is already shaping up between Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto.
And looking at the results very close, do you smell, you know, a rerun in this election?
As it stands right now, there is such a possibility. Let me tell you one thing that we have even seen from the pollsters that have been organized here in the country, is that this election, no matter what people are telling you, is very close to call. I cannot say right now that either of the two will take the government by tomorrow morning, as the fluctuating results are already painting a picture where William Ruto is overtaking Raila Odinga and Raila Odinga is overtaking. It all depends with whose stronghold votes are coming fast.
I love speaking to colleagues, journalists like yourself. Now, let's pick what's not been said. At the end of the day, looking at the results, Kennedy, is it safe to say Ruto is actually in a good fight?
This is actually a very good fight. For the first time in this country, despite the fact that about 12 million people, by the goings on of IEBC and by their reportage, is that they are tabulation by this evening, by almost the close of all of the polling stations. They were saying that there is about 56% voter turnout, which they put at 12 million voters who came out and who were captured by these KIEMS kits that we are using. They had already not gone into those that were captured manually, because we do understand that there are about 200 polling stations that did not, the KIEMS kit did not work. So there are those that voted manually. Actually, in a county called Makueni in lower eastern Kenya, in parts of those inhabited by the Kamba people, we have gotten information that in about 84 polling stations, they were not able to use the KIEMS kit, thus resulting into using the manual register, which Matsanga will tell you, the United Democratic Party went to court yesterday seeking orders to bar the usage of the manual register. Now, the net effect of that is that there is a probability that in those 84 polling stations in Makueni County, there are people who are either voting at this particular hour, or they're still waiting to see whether their names are on that particular ballot paper, or even the manual register that has been posted there. So just skirting around it and going back to your question, this is a very close election to call, and William Ruto is presenting a very formidable fight for Raila Odinga that will only be declared when the IEBC gets all the full results. If between 6 o'clock and now 9 o'clock they have gotten over 18,000 Form 34s A, what tells of the fact that probably by morning we might even be knowing the next president of Kenya?
Well, Kennedy, thanks for your time. Don't you go anywhere. I'll come back to you. Let me quickly come back to the studio and speak more to Vincent before I come to David Matsanga. David Matsanga, who's also helping us keeping tabs on the breaking story, developing story there. I'll come back to you, David, so that you can tell us more on what exactly is happening. Now, coming to you, Vincent, I'm looking at the Kikuyu voting bloc, which is massive. It is massive, and it decides the winner, but now choices are split.
Exactly, and that is what is many people never expected that. We expected a scenario where we were going to have, as in relation to last election, I think in Kikuyu they had of about 80% turnout, but right now they are at 4. Their rating is around 56. That is a very big difference. And considering that one of the major contender, William Ruto, the current deputy president, was expecting a lot from this region. So there is a lot at play here, considering that as things stand right now, deputy president was banking on 2 regions, majorly. That is the Rift Valley region, which he controls because that is his ethnic, and also the Mount Kenya region. So, but he cannot win the presidency with Mount Kenya region alone. I mean, with the Rift Valley region alone. He needed like 70%. But with the percentage that is going right now, the percent that Raila, the number of votes that Raila is getting, I think is going to get it rough, considering that he's banking on 2 regions only. Because when you go to the other regions, is apart from the lower, the lower eastern, when you go to Kajiado, Narok, those are the Maasai people, it is not always balanced, but based on the results that we are seeing now, the unexpected is happening. People never saw this coming. Maybe they underrated the power. They worked on assumption that the 2013, 2017 voter turnout, the scenario is going to remain the same. But I'm very sure even wherever they are right now, they are shocked.
So let me quickly bring in Arnold Maliba, who is a public policy analyst. Arnold, good to see you and thanks for your time. You've heard Vincent. He's saying that the pundits seem to be having a rethink on analysis of this election. Did you see this coming?
I don't think that the results so far paint a very different picture from what the pundits actually put out there. The elections out there, I've actually seen a banner going out and on the screen talking about 15%. Let me just correct and add on to what Kennedy Mreithi, my friend Kennedy Mreithi actually said much earlier on, that 1 hour to the closing of the polling stations, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission said that 56.17% of voters had actually turned up. So as we speak, we are expecting voter turnout in the regions of between 55 and 60% because there was still 1 hour. And in law, anyone who is on the queue by the time of closing up the voting time closing, it should actually be allowed to vote. There are still people in central region who are still on the queue as we speak, and in sections of eastern Kenya. But of course, the people who are on the queues, give and take, are not more than 1%, or rather 1.5%. So it's not entirely 15%. We should be speaking about 56% upwards. You asked about, just getting around that, you asked if the pundits got it wrong. No. This election, of course, is actually so close, but then a few things already are shaping up. Like, for example, in both Western Kenya and coast of Kenya, both Raila and Ruto are actually 50-50. Not completely in there, but what we so far have is almost 50-50, and they are leading in, and the UDA is leading in central. So you already see a trend shaping up, and whatever way you look at it, it's likely to tip on Ruto's side, unfortunately, from what we have. But statistically speaking, what we have, and Kennedy has said that we could actually have results out by mid tomorrow, which I do not think. I would like to actually disagree with that, because unlike in the elections in the past, where we used the alphanumerics, where as in people from the polling stations can actually send in the numbers, this time around, IEBC has to receive the images, the Form 34As, and then analyze that, confirm with the people in polling stations before they can actually put the data up there. So
Arnold, so let me jump in here quickly. Arnold, so in other words, you think it might go beyond Wednesday?
Yes, because we are using images sent in, and those images have to actually be analyzed. We are not using the alphanumerics. So, whereas, of course, we expect that the presidential votes will be, the counting will be done probably by midnight. So we can have data out there that is indicative. But you see, it's only IBC that can declare results. And if you look at the IBC portal, especially the numbers that are actually being put out there, it's much slower than what political parties, for example, the United Democratic Action, that is Ruto's party, that has got their own agents in polling stations, then they are already doing collation using the forms they have received. And they are likely to have results much earlier. But of course, according to law, the only people who can actually declare results are IEBC. So, whereas it's true that the forms have come in, we still have good places where people are still voting. And IEBC is actually slower, quote unquote, slower in actually declaring, going through the collation and doing analysis, and then, of course, putting out the numbers. So, whereas all other people have their own tallying centers and frameworks that they are working with, the official results for me are likely to be actually come out on Thursday morning, because Chebukati, the chairman of IEBC, said he will not make any announcement at night. And I doubt we are going to actually go through this by the end of tomorrow.
Well, for those who are non-Kenyans, the IEBC, that's the electoral umpire in Kenya, equivalent of what Nigerians call the INEC. And of course, before I move to David Matsanga, quickly, still I want to stay with you, Arnold Maliba. Quickly, Kikuyu, speak to us about Kikuyu, which is a fifth of Kenya's population and has produced 3 of its 4 presidents, Jomo and Uhuru Kenyatta and Mwai Kibaki. Daniel Arap Moi is Kalenjin. So what do we see? What do we hope to see as we go for collating of these results?
Well, the Kikuyu question is actually very important and has always been important in Kenya's elections. And today, the Kikuyu question actually became very clear today. Because what normally happens, and this is my theory, not really out there as an established fact, but this is my theory. You literally, when Kikuyus have got stakes in the election, I'm talking about the national seats, they have got a way of hyping the elections and mobilizing heavily. And then the other regions feel threatened and then also organize to counter them. In a situation like this particular election where the Kikuyus do not have a horse in this particular race, you then realize that there was a lower voter turnout in central Kenya, where the Kikuyus come from, and elsewhere, there wasn't also so much enthusiasm. So you look at only 2 regions that have got very high voter turnout, and that is specifically in Kalenjin Rift Valley, not the entire Rift Valley. That is parts of Central Rift Valley and Rift Valley and North Rift, and then Nyanza. That is where the numbers I've looked at, you realize that they are upwards of 85% in Nyanza, and that is primarily Luo Nyanza, and in Rift Valley. But elsewhere, we saw polling stations closing in the regions of 50%. So those 2 ends. So back to the Kikuyu question, from where I sit, I think a Kikuyu horse in the race has got a way of, quote unquote, scaring the rest of the country or some segments of the country, and they therefore come out and organize to counter that. It makes the election very interesting. Just the same way with Raila Odinga being on the ballot. If he's not on the ballot, then at least for the last 20 years, it has always not been, let me talk about 15 years, it has always not been very, very exciting. So the Kikuyu question is important, but the voter turnout in Central really didn't come off as we have actually gotten used to it in the last 15 years. It's way below what is impressive numbers. And of course, it's a question that is interesting. But then that's the future of the politics we want to look at, where it's not a matter of, it's not a do or die. It's something that goes beyond ethnic census. Because for the longest time, our elections have not really been about issues, but normally it's just ethnic census canvassing as an election.
Let me bring in David here now, because that's a fine place. I was actually coming to David on this. First, looking at what's happening in other parts of the continent, specifically in Nigeria, people are not looking at issues. They're talking about some other mundane things. And again, if you also look at the demographics, it will seem as if Africa isn't ready for a young generation of leaders. For instance, looking at what obtained in the political space in Nigeria, the youngest then was a governor in Nigeria who indicated his interest at the presidency, the governor of Kogi State. He would have become one of the youngest to give it a shot. But again, Nigerians and the political system wasn't also ready for that. Speak to us, David Matsanga. You've also witnessed an election here in Nigeria. You've gone around so many places. Is Africa ready for a younger person at the presidency?
Should ask one other question the other way around.
I should ask it the other way around. You tell me the other way around. I asked my question already.
The other way around is Maliba, Arnold Maliba, ready for presidency in Kenya?
Don't bring in Maliba here now. Leave Maliba out of this.
Okay, let me be very honest.
All right.
In Africa, it is going to be difficult for us to produce at the moment some younger generation, because our politics has not reached what we call a social contract politics. Society, we don't have a social contract that binds us together. Murithi and Maliba, Arnold will tell you, we work from hand to mouth, and some of the youth don't have even the ability to be able to stand and say, I hate ICC. I will not like you until, even if you kill me, I will not. Some of the youth. That's why you see now some of the candidates among the two candidates, there is one going to cry louder by Thursday or tomorrow. Before I come to your question, I want to support, to come in the argument between Maliba and the statement between Maliba and Murithi. Murithi is correct. There are 18,000, and at the same time, Maliba also is correct. 18,000, polling stations have so far, and I want to tell you, I've sent it to you, to your editors. Said 18,000 polling stations have delivered their Form 34A. And do you know why the Ruto thing is moving up fast? The best people who delivered their forms are from the counties.
I really hate to do this, David. Hold your thought there. I hope you don't lose it. I'll come back to you. We need to go. Yes, good. I'll come back to you quickly. Let's go on a short one, and we'll come back to you.
Yes, I'll wait.
Parliament results. Then we have the County Tallying Center, where there'll be final tallying and declaration of results for gubernatorial candidates, senatorial candidates, and countwoman member of Parliament. Here at the National Tallying Center, we shall be doing verification of transmitted image of the result from 34S against original from 34S. So the images are coming in, but our returning officers will bring the original forms, then we shall do verification once we receive them. And you can see the desks will be here in the open, 5 desks, and each desk will have the IBC officials and agents of presidential candidates. All the 4 agents will be accommodated here. Then we shall also have verification of constituency form 34Bs against their respective form 34S, followed by collation of form 34C, which is the form that has a collation of all the polling station results. Then we shall also have confirmation of constitutional threshold of 50% plus 1, and also confirmation of 25% of majority of counties of the votes garnered. We shall then follow with the declaration of presidential results and issuance of certificate to the president-elect. So those are activities that will be in this phase of results, the National Tallying Center. So here we shall have 3 screens running. The first screen is the one you see on the right, which is projecting the number of Form 34As received from polling stations. The second screen will project collected results received from the constituencies, and the third screen will project the county aggregates of all the 47 counties. In transmitting the results transmission system has been configured to send the results only once, with one QR code which is configured for that polling station. Persons authorized to be at the polling station include the media, observers, and polling station agents who are allowed to take an image of the Form 34A. And we all must remember that results announced at the polling station are final and cannot be changed by anyone. So that is the exercise we are undertaking. And once the verification is complete, the constituency returning officers will come present the results for announcement. In conclusion, I must mention that the law requires the Commission to undertake verification of presidential election results and declare president-elect within 7 days on conclusion of the polls. As a Commission, we call for patience among Kenyans as we undertake this rigorous exercise, and we also endeavor to complete this exercise as soon as possible. So thank you very much. God bless all of us, and God bless Kenya. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a better hand of applause, please. Then we have Muungano Choir.
Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching updates coming live from Kenya, Nairobi, as the country elects a new president. Check your time at the moment. It's already 10:06 p.m. in Nairobi. Quite a lot is coming from Kenya on this particular election. Going head-to-head is William Ruto, Kenya Deputy President, and of course, veteran politician Raila Odinga. Still have David Matsanga, who's live with me. David, apologies, so we had to go quickly on that to get the IBC Chebukati speak to also on updates on this particular election. So let's let you finish up your train of thoughts on this election before we go back to looking at the numbers with Shewa and Tunde.
Thank you very much. So far, I have discovered from my researchers on the ground, I have my contacts and my returning men officers, also to my servers, that I have one main tallying center in my place, my office. What is going on now is the results that are making the number of Ruto come closer to Raila's results are coming from the constituency, the counties of Nandi, Elengoya Marakwet, Bomet, Kericho, Baringo. And as anybody who is on the panel here can tell you, those are the strongholds of His Excellency, the Right Honorable Deputy President of Republic of Kenya, William Ruto. So far, don't be worried. This word you are talking about, neck to neck, is going to disappear by very early in the morning. You know why?
I don't.
The voter turnout in Mount Kenya is what has given a shocker to even to Ruto's people, a very big shock. 2 or 3 friends of mine have called me and said, hello, you were right. I was telling everybody in Kenya, and Maliba will tell you, I said, if the mountain does not produce 70% or over, people turn out to vote for Ruto, he will not be able to galvanize the vote against the man, the veteran politician who has been there, who is collecting votes from every angle, including Masai land. You can see Raila is doing very well in Masai, in Narok. Those areas, Kajiado is doing very well. So when you look at those things, the politics of this country is going to be shaped. If it's not tomorrow, it will be shaped on Thursday, as Maliba said, because the process is very strenuous. You have again to verify the picture, whether that picture is the same as the picture that is original. That is a very serious, I have just been told by my embedded investigative journalist.
And David, you know, you've in your analysis so far, you've been right. What would happen should you, at the end of the day, miss out on this particular one? Because for some, they're saying that it looks like it's still neck to neck. And also, they're already saying that perhaps this going into early Thursday.
No, I agree. Early Thursday is okay. I've now just been told by boss, I am a master of you know very well, Sulaiman, I'm a master of intelligence for a long time, since 1978. I've lived in that field and I've gathered all the intelligence from Chebukati's pocket and house. So I know what's going on. They will declare things around Thursday morning. I'm one of the few people, Maliba will tell you, I'm one of the few people who has been consistent on this question of this election, on the question of IEBC. But now it is over, we can criticize them. But there is a point that Maliba brought. Let's look at, and Maliba and the Kenyans and Otieno are the best to tell you this. The Mount Kenya vote If it is going by the pattern that I'm seeing now here, Raila has done very, very, very well. If it goes the way it is, with the total number of votes coming in, Raila is getting 135, another one is getting 190, 200, Raila is getting 180. That is very good for Raila, because he only needs to comb his area. So far, we have not seen many results coming from Raila's ground, of which we call strongholds. They are coming from places like Kakamega. I'm shocked. In Kakamega, Raila has won about 4 of them flat out. They are the ones that have come in now. This is very good for Mzee. There is another thing that I want to introduce on the topic. If you are closer to Raila, you are nearer to leadership, because Raila is not going for 2 terms. Mr. Ruto might go for 4 terms. Now the election is over, Sulaiman. We can talk. We can tell the truth. If you give Ruto a vote, you are giving Museveni a vote. He will turn you.
Well, the elections are not done and dusted, so I wouldn't want to jump into all of that because this is Africa First. Africa is watching. So no, David Matsanga, the elections are not done yet. But I'm excited that you're making us smile. You're giving us your intelligence. But again, the elections are still too close to call, and we'll have to leave it at that. We're winding down, so let me come to Vincent, so that Vincent can give us his take on this, because we're closing. Keep in mind, if you're watching across the continent and beyond, the news comes on the top of the hour. That will be 9 p.m. Lagos, Nigeria time, which will be 11 p.m. in Nairobi. We're bringing the news for you here. But before then, let's quickly talk more about this now. Arnold Maliba has said he sees this going into early Thursday. You share in that with him?
Well, I want to combine their arguments together.
Oh, by all means.
Because if we go with Dr. Matsanga, he's saying that, okay, Muriithi, Matsanga, they were on the same side, and Maliba is saying that we might go until Thursday. But my point is this, that we are going, based on the results that we are seeing, we are going to know our president-elect by tomorrow. Most likely by tomorrow morning. But the announcement legally by the institute that is mandated by that is IBC, might go until Thursday in the morning. Basically, he declared that he's not going to declare anybody as the winner at night. But based on how the rate at which these results are coming in, I'm quite sure that in the morning we are going to have seen where the election is heading to. And if you consider, there are only 2 places where manual register was really implemented. That is 54 polling stations in Makueni, and also 80 polling stations in Makueni, and also that is in the eastern side of Kenya, and also 154 polling stations in Kakamega. But let's look at who enjoys support in this area. So I think it will be easier to determine where the election is going based on the results that we are going to have. Because my assumption is these 2 regions having 1 person. Raila is enjoying this support in Ukambani, that is Makueni, as per se. Raila is enjoying a massive support also in western side, that is in Kakamega. These are areas that are going to delay the announcement of the results because of the manual way of identification. But if these areas, they are associated with 1 individual, that means the results that we are going to have based on the electronic transmission can as well be used to project the winner. That one, we can use that, we can project the winner as early as tomorrow morning.
Well, as early as Wednesday. Thank you very much for your time, Vincent Otieno. But quickly, let me bring in Arnold Maliba here before I say my goodbye to you. Maliba, these are moments that Africa look up to. This is one of the best times that countries, we saw Nigeria's electoral umpire chief, Professor Yakubu, already observing this election in Kenya. He was with Chebukati earlier on. And of course, what do you think this will mean for Nigeria as the country prepares for its own big election in 2023?
I think that is quite a difficult question, but there are a few issues I actually think would be important to raise in this particular instance and probably see how the body, or rather Nigerians can actually, we need to start having conversations about the cost of elections in Africa. In Kenya specifically, our elections are, or rather, let me say the election in Kenya is actually one of the most expensive because in 2017, for example, we costed the elections to be at about $25 per a voter. Now, that is equivalent, when you look at India, for example, a country that has got 56 times more the population of Kenya, the cost of their election is about 0.8 of a dollar. So the cost of elections, for example, and primarily it's about the trust deficit, where we print our money and currency in Kenya, in Nairobi. No one has got a problem with the money. But we have to print our ballots abroad because no one trusts anybody locally here. If you look at our ballot papers, they actually have got more security features than our currency. So we need to find ways of dealing with the cost, because the reason why our elections are actually very expensive is because of the trust deficiency. And out of the trust deficiency, we also then end up having very complicated and expensive legal framework around elections that make it so difficult to implement, therefore shooting up the cost. It's just time we stopped wasting money on elections, because elections is not rocket science. It's quite basic. And therefore, if you look at the money that we are putting in, for example, this year, it's estimated that both the candidates and government are putting in an estimated $1.8 billion. For a country like ours, that is too much money that goes into elections. It's not necessary. I think from the Kenya's case, we need to start having this conversation as a continent. And of course, even though in Kenya we are rated as a mid-range performing democracy, if you look at that cost, at what cost are we even within that space? We are not yet the best. We are still being looked at as a mid-range and then performing democracy, but the cost is prohibitive. It's not necessary, especially where we have got people that need that money. We need money for education. We need money to actually deal with poverty eradication. We still have got quite a large population that live below the poverty line. So that is one thing that I'm thinking, even as the continent looks at this particular election and people come out here to observe, this obsession that expensive is actually credible is a lie. Because I have been to other countries, and that is why Matsanga is still obsessed with me as a youth leader. I've been the president of the National Youth Council and the president of the president's political party at some point. That's why I still was talking about when am I ready to become president. So I have had an opportunity to go across the world. And I know one thing. Sometimes I was in Germany and I looked at their ballot. It looked like a photocopy. And no one rigs that. No one is even afraid about that. So the cost of elections, even though we are happy when it turns out the way it's actually turning out, that we didn't have anything systemic, there's no fear, there is no, the things that we've seen in the past, but then the cost, we need to start asking questions. Is it necessary to have this money going into elections when we can actually work on that? So that is one thing. The other thing that I think that you asked, and that speaks to is Africa ready for the younger generation? We already saw that, I think, in Madagascar, the DJ, I think somebody, Ravalamanana, came in. But to compound this question, I need to actually throw it to you and tell you that myself and probably, I don't know how old Otieno is, but I know Muredi, myself and Muredi are millennials. So if you look at Kenya, for the first time in 20 years, the people, because in this country we define youth as people aged between 18 and have not turned 35. Now, for the first time in 20 years, we have got voters who are aged above 35 being the majority of voters and not the people who are youth. From 2002, the people who are 18 and below, the adults who are between 18 and 35 used to form 67% of the registered voters. But in this particular election, we even made a joke about it and said it's an election of the old people. And of course, a further joke has been that the youth voted during the campaigns. They've now allowed their parents to vote during the elections. As in, the youth have not just shown up. It has been a very bad showing. But then there's the question of millennials and then Generation Zers. The Generation Z are now coming of age. They're almost the same in population, even though a number of Generation Zers are not yet of the age of majority and therefore be allowed to vote. It's a phenomenon that cuts across, but I think from my experience, having worked with and for the youth most of my adult life, I realized one thing, that Generation X, or rather the millennials, are so much let me speak about Kenya, are so much, they're selfish, they are not so much, they've not had a fight of their own, a cause for which they actually have stood up. They are quite laid back when it comes to politics, and when it comes to the management of public affairs, they are looking at it from what they can gain as individuals. But Generation Zers, these people who were born after 1996, a number of them are now adults, and from what I have seen, working with and for young people in different capacities, you then realize that Generation Zers are more politically woke. They love being part and parcel of solutions. So whereas I would say that my generation, the millennials, are ready to actually take over, you look at even the millennials who are already in places of influence, myself included, and you have a feeling that probably they are not ready. But then there's something we call the demographic imperative. You know, the conveyor of life just moves on. The people ahead of us are actually being, the conveyor keeps on moving. So the demographic imperative will then dictate that Generation X or millennials then are the people to call on duty. So we also need to have the question of youth in Africa coming in, because unfortunately, 80% of Africans were born in the last 24 years. But so much as Africa is a young continent, how are young people being part and parcel of the management of public affairs in their own respective countries? Those two questions for me, the cost and the place of young people, because the Africa we are building, when we go to elections, we are building an Africa for the young people and the children of Africa. Not so much about the older people we have, because demographic imperative dictates that they will be actually checking out very soon. That we cannot argue with, because there's one thing you can't argue with and win, that is age. You never argue and win against age.
I'd like to thank you for your time, Arnold Maliba, public policy analyst. Thank you for joining us live from Kenya. And I see that Matsanga wants to give us his closing comment on that before we wrap up. And I do hope once I'm done with everyone, I'll be going back to our digital studios to see what Shewa and Tunde have with us in terms of numbers. David?
There is something that we have forgotten here. And Maliba, thank you very much, and Otieno. The diaspora vote. Raila seemed to have swept almost everything, which it has come. It is here. Everything. Raila, all of them. From Kigali, from Dubai, from Poland. It is only Poland where the daughter is an embassy staff. I don't know whether Raila seemed to have done very well in the diaspora. Most of the people in the diaspora. But there is another smaller thing that I want Sulaiman to take. East or West, apart from this incident of Mr. Baraza, this election this time was conducted very peacefully. You Kenyans are very peaceful. I would like to tell you that Baraza has just been arrested. Right now, he is now in custody of the police in Bungoma. There are 4 people, 3 dead bodies that are in the mortuary. So the investigations will take place. But I want to thank the Kenyans for having been peaceful and being resilient, and for the government also having looked after the security and allowed unlike my place where internet was switched off, this place has even double internet. Thank you very much, Kenyans, for showing us the good way, Africa.
All right, okay. I'd like to thank you for being such nice company, Dr. David Matsanga, and of course Vincent Otieno, and of course Kevin Mutai, Kennedy Murithi, and Arnold Maliba. You all have been far too kind. Thank you for bringing Kenya to our homes across the continent.